And welcome back, YouTube, to our Factorio playthrough. So, where did we leave off last time? Got a first couple of episodes out. I just really wanted to put a couple out there just to see how it would get started. And so I just recorded a couple and sort of fired them off. And now here we are a couple of days later. I took some time to myself over the weekend, and I'm coming back to try and start this recording and see where we're at. So it looks like we've just started getting our iron sorted here. So we have the miners over here, which are starting to produce iron and send them up to these smelters. And we've just started the process of getting the iron into the smelters and get them on the line here. So we're going to try and do a very similar thing with the copper right now. And once we do that and we have copper being produced, I think we will be able to start setting up instances where, you know, we start setting up sort of these intermediary products, right? Where we start bringing this iron over here and the copper, we start bringing them together and start making the materials that we need in order to make these science packs so that we can start automating this process. So just guys, give me a minute here and I'm going to start really speeding up this process, getting more of these miners out here and getting this automatically done just like we did with the iron. All right, and I'll check back with you guys in just a minute. Here we go. Hey there guys, Future Tan is here, providing a little bit of voiceover for what you're seeing. I just want to let you guys know how the rest of this series is probably going to play out, right? I recorded the first couple of sessions here, first few episodes, didn't really like the way that they went, so I've completely changed out my workflow for the way these direct-to-YouTube videos are going to go. Unlike my VODs, these are going to be a little bit more edited. And in this case, that's going to include time lapses where I do the bulk of the actual building. You'll get to hear my planning and thought processes as we move towards each sort of build section. And I'll sort of play out and figure out and even prototype some things. And then once we get into bulk of building, like what you're seeing here, I will be speeding up the footage and providing a bit of voiceover. I'm gonna need you guys to let me know what you think about this approach. I know that there's a lot of other YouTubers who do this sort of thing, a lot of content creators who like to, you know, try this more edited approach where they speed up the actual video itself and sort of do post commentary. I don't know how it's gonna work for me, but I'm willing to give it a shot here, and I think it'll be really fun. So, let me know. All right, so we've sort of set up a bit that's very similar to what we've done down in the iron over here with the copper. Basic idea here is that the copper is being mined up. It's being sent down here where it's going down this line of smelters where it's being smelted into the plates that we need, and the plates will then be sent off somewhere. You might have noticed in that time lapse there that I also spent a bit of time deconstructing some of the temporary stuff that we had set up, right? No more little copper works over here producing some random wires, no more random setup down here, which was like making gear wheels and sending them up to the labs or whatever. All of that stuff has been removed now because we're going to start with the more permanent versions of all of that stuff. So I'm actually going to tear all this out of here. None of it's doing anything right now, and none of it's probably going to be doing anything in the foreseeable future. So we're going to pull all that out of there. Now all these power lines are just running power up and down. And you might also notice that I've kind of got discrete setups for my coal here. I've got a few miners that are just sending over to iron, a few that are just sending over to copper. I like this design better, where each one gets its own, each sort of field gets its own discrete shipment of coal, basically. And I like split this up into half, and I send half of it where it's going. The only thing that I don't have yet, that is not done right now, that I do want to do, and we're actually going to do it right now, is, and you see this keeps happening. See, this is like the perfect timing for this. This keeps happening. See these red triangles, these red warning triangles? You might have even noticed it a couple times in the time lapse that happened is that basically I keep having to run over here and deliver fuel to the power systems. Basically, I keep having to deliver fuel to the boilers that are supposed to be generating the electricity. So obviously that's not going to fly. So in order for us to fix that, what we're going to do is we're going to send them coal directly, so that I don't have to keep hoofing it over there all the time. As you might start to already see at this early stage in the game, iron is your main mitigating factor. It's all about your ability to produce and maintain iron. Later on in the game, that will change, and it will start to become much more focused on your ability to handle copper. But in this early stage of the game, it's all about iron. Now, iron, of course, remains important for many, 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 many things. But at least in this early stage of the game, it is your iron that is primarily important at this early stage in the game, and later on in the game, copper becomes more important. So I'm actually I'm trying to think about how I want to do this. For now, I'm just gonna route it direct. I'm gonna actually pick up well, I actually didn't need to pick up any of the coal. I've got plenty in my inventory. We're gonna just drop that in here for now since I'm over here, and I need to go back and make more transport belts. See, this is the problem with doing everything by hand. Obviously, I'm not going for any of the achievements that I mentioned in the first couple of episodes. There's one achievement for trying to clear this whole thing and launch your first rocket within 8 hours of gameplay. There's another one for trying to complete the game while only crafting 100 items or something in your actual hand, down here in the corner. And I am clearly not going for either one of those because I've already far and away exceeded that amount of items that I'm creating in my hand. You can imagine just how much forethought and work goes into trying to make it so as that you don't accidentally produce too much stuff. So there it is. So you should now fuel that. So I should now not ever run out of fuel in that boiler. Now obviously I'll have to fix that up as I add more boilers, stuff like that. We'll fix up the delivery system. But for now I'm just siphoning off just a little bit off of what's going to the iron. Eventually I will need to pack this whole area full of miners in order to generate enough coal to keep up, for instance, our various smelting operations. But for right now, everything is very low key. Everything's very small. Because we don't need much right now. And in fact, right now, the main thing I need to worry about is starting to get my science online. So again, we made some of these in hand before, but we want to start automating this. So we need copper plates and iron gear wheels. Which means that we need to get the iron plates and the copper plates to the same place. This is, we're going to be using a process in this game, in this run, known as a main bus, at least to start things off. The main bus, bus in the sense of it's a sort of mode of transport. I actually think it's bus in the same way that a serial bus is on your computer. I think that's sort of the same general nomenclature. But the idea here is that this is where things are going to travel along, right? Things are going to travel along the bus. And so we're going to try and get our basic materials, our copper and our iron, to meet up so that we can form the bus. So what you'll notice is I've already gotten pretty good on that, on the copper. I'm almost brought it all the way over here. Now the bus is going to be, I'm going to pull up the map here. The bus, excuse me, I had something caught in my lips there for a second. The bus is going to be an actual string of these transport belts that's going to continue in a straight line, probably this way, because there doesn't seem to be a lot in the way. And it's just going to streak off across the countryside. And as it continues on, we're just going to break off parts of it in order to make, we're just going to branch off in order to make the materials that we need, right? So in order for that to happen, we are going to basically have to bring the copper ore that we're making and the copper plates that we're making and the iron plates we're making. We're going to bring them together, start sending them along in this direction. So that's what we're doing right now. So I'm gonna make a few more of these transport belts. Again, we're just making them in our hand. We do have, I could be putting down the assembly machine, which could be making these. And in fact, I probably should start to do that right now because I don't actually need copper to do that. But I want to make sure that everything gets sort of planted onto a bus before I start making things like, you know, your basic transport belts. So after making the transport belts, I'm actually going to need a few undergrounders as well, because I'm going to have to like cross over some of this existing infrastructure in order to get where we're going. So you can generally take 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8. 8 is the magic number for these. In the later game, you can like have a line of 8 on either side of the highly advanced smelters. Once we get access to the highly advanced smelters, putting as fast as possible onto like the faster transport belts. These are only basic transport belts that you get at the beginning of the game. You will eventually have access to stronger, faster transport belts. But for right now, I don't have access to those. So right now the numbers don't really matter, but eventually my understanding is that 8 is the magic number. So here we go. We're going to bring... And all this can be refactored later, which is one of the cool things about the bus. Like how this is brought onto the bus, how it's taken off the bus, all that can be refactored in individual chunks when it's necessary. So again, we're just making more transport belts here. And we're bringing everything together. All right, so now we have the start of what you would call your main bus. Now, eventually this is all going to grow much bigger than it is right now. We're going to have multiple, you know, blocks of iron smelters creating multiple lines of iron that are all going to have to go together. We're going to have multiple lines of copper smelters smelting a bunch of copper plates that are all going to have to come together. So like all this is going to get very, very big eventually. But right now it's, you know, it is what it is. So from here, we're going to create a area. So I'm actually going to go ahead and write in my hand here. I'm going to create a few of these assembly machines. I've actually got 3 on me, so I'm just going to create like 3 more. We're going to create a bunch of these, some of these assembly machines. Now, I'm not going to do this right here. I'm actually going to start to extend further out. Primarily, the primary reason I'm doing this right now is because, again, my goal is I'm going to have like a line of iron here, a line of iron here, a line of iron here being produced. So I don't want to start breaking off too early. I want to give myself space to expand, right? Giving yourself space to expand is a huge part of future-proofing your base. I'm under attack here. Yep, I'm losing items very quickly. 3 broken buildings. 4, 7 broken buildings. 10 broken buildings. Oh, it's a big group. 18. 20. I don't know, I might not have the gunpowder needed to kill these guys. As you may have noticed from my first run, I don't consider this a very fun part of the game. Gonna make more ammo in hand, and voila, we just lost like 40 items. Congratulations. Nothing I did mattered. Hooray! Fun with a capital F. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna, first of all, make a better weapon for ourselves so that this doesn't happen again. We're gonna make a few more firearm magazines. And then we've gotta basically redo everything that we just did. And so I set about repairing everything that had been damaged by the biters, getting my copper production back up to where it was before. Hopefully this will never happen again, he says ominously. Okay, we're back to put together, so that's, you know, just a little bit of an annoyance that's been taken care of. Did not actually affect anything, which is why, that's the big problem, right? It didn't actually affect anything, it just slowed me down, right? All it did was distract me and slow me down. Didn't actually change anything. That's why I don't consider it particularly interesting part of the gameplay, but it is what it is. And it's one of the reasons why I play on Rail World, because once I clear out these bases, they don't come back again. And it's why I play with the Fill For Me mod, so once I do get the turrets up and running, I can start planting them down, like, aggressively. Like, I can run up to a base, I can just plump these things on the ground, and it'll wipe out the base instantly. So I did mention at the beginning of the first episode that, yeah, that is something I do. It trivializes the combat, but to some degree, the combat is somewhat a trivial part of the game anyway, so. So yeah, we're going to continue to expand this out. I want to just leave enough space for like 4 of these or so. We can continue to expand further later if we absolutely have to, but I want to leave enough space to get this started. So, and now I need some splitters. Splitters are going to be the main way that we're going to pull stuff off of this. It's the main way we're going to pull stuff off of this, right? So once that starts getting created, which it's all creating in my hand really slowly right now. So we're going to start creating our first item, our first sort of separate thing, which is we're going to start creating these transport belts. So put a splitter down, and then you can see that now, if I do like this, you can pretty clearly and easily see that I now have some iron that's going to go this way, some iron that's going to go this way, right? And this is important because now I can plant down an assembly machine. Give myself some space to work with, why not? Don't need to cluster everything together. Never really a need to cluster things that tightly together. Now oh my god, are we being attacked again? That's insane, man. I'm just gonna have to create a few things and wipe out that base. Well, you guys are gonna get a nice combat tutorial, at least the combat tutorial as far as the Fill For Me mod is concerned. Okay, well, that's multiple times in a row that this has now happened, so. And off I go to take care of the problem on my own. Now, I should note that there really isn't a need for me to go do this. I don't have to go fight this base if I didn't really want to. I could just set up defensive turrets, load them up with a bunch of ammunition, and then when the biters ran up, they would get blasted by the turrets. I could continue to play the game and ignore all of this, but I chose to be aggressive because I didn't want to waste my time setting up defensive turrets that are just going to bleed ammunition and resources until the end of time. Well, you'll see that this comes back to bite me right about, yeah, here, where I die. That's a huge sink of resources, and it's very frustrating, but I'm undeterred. I make more turrets, I make more ammo, I make more guns, and I'm just gonna go back out there again. This is only really possible because of the Fill For Me mod, because the Fill For Me mod allows me to just drop down the turrets and they automatically get some ammo put into them instead of me having to open up each one's inventory, drop some ammo in, and move on. This means that instead of having to like set up a wall, move forward, set up slightly bigger wall, move forward again, set up slightly more, I can just sort of do this aggressive play here, which did result in my death, but anyway. Well, with that taken care of, I'm just going to rebuild this base one more time, and we'll be back where we started. Alright, back to where we were. Apologies for that little distraction. I had to go take care of a problem. In the meantime, let's get back to what we were starting to do before all of that occurred. And that is to say that we were working on starting our creation of some of our secondary pieces of equipment, like our intermediate steps here. So I want to make certain things that I've been having to make in my hand, I want to make that automatically instead. So things like transport belts, the splitters, underground belts, even things like the automated assembly machines themselves. I want to start making these things, maybe even some electric mining drills. I want to start making these things automatically. How are we going to start doing that? Well, the first thing is we need some assembly machines. Thankfully, I have a couple on the ground here, which we can start out with, but I'm going to need even more. I'll make a couple more, and of course, we're going to need a bunch of inserters. So once we get the inserters together, it's going to be the first thing that needs to be made for make the transport belt. You see, the transport belt needs iron plates, which we have, but it also needs iron gear wheels. So we need these guys to start making gear wheels. Actually, going to give this one a space between it. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, and we go. So some people, there's actually a discussion. There's always an active discussion as to whether or not you include these intermediate products like copper cables, gear wheels, iron sticks, things like that, whether you include them on your bus or not. Most people say, well, it's a split. There isn't really a most people say. It is an active argument with lots of hollering and yelling both ways. That's the truth of the matter. The truth of the matter is that there's people who believe it both ways. Now, for me, I used to belt all of my everything. I used to belt literally everything. But I've really come around recently to the idea that you really should not do that. And instead what you do is anytime that you need an intermediate material to make a larger material, you just include that all in one sort of block, right? You just include that all together. What's this? I guess you were just having trouble because you were resource starved for so long, but you should actually be okay now. Yeah, I guess you were just resource starved for a while because you were getting blasted. So instead, what I'm going to do here is I'm not going to belt any of that secondary resource. I am instead going to... Oh, I remember what I was doing. I like walked over there for a second. I was trying to figure out why I would walked over there. I was going to start putting down these guys. We go here and then here. Yeah, that'll... Oh, except that doesn't... No, because that's not where that wants to go. This wants to go here to make sure I connect everything. And then here. Yeah, there we go. Okay. These guys are going to be making gear wheels. Gear wheels. Okay. Tell it what they're making, and then they spit it out onto the board back here, right? This is how this is, you know, the process of like belt, inserter, something, inserter back onto a belt once it's been changed. That's sort of a big part of the logistics network here. So out come the gear wheels, and then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to combine the gear wheels and the... So I'm going to make one here. And I'm going to put it out here. So the question becomes, how quickly do these make? So this is something that you can get mods to help you figure out. Like this makes... It takes 0.5 seconds and it creates one at a time. That seems to be the case. It takes 0.5 seconds and it creates one at a time. Or two at a time? I don't know. But the assembly machine making these takes 1 second and uses one of them. So actually, I only need one of these, I think, to have two facilities that can create... No, hold on. I need you to stop for a second. Hold on. I'm like trying to pull everything out of it and being like, why isn't it doing what I think it should be doing? We're gonna change your recipe. You're just gonna be making those. You're gonna be making those as well. And actually, you can hit Alt, I believe. Yes, Alt, and it'll show you sort of what's in what these things are set up to do. Now, if I go ahead and so there's also these long inserters, which I think I'm going to make use of a couple of them here just to show you what these are for. These, instead of just handling one square over like these do, The long-handled inserters send it 2 squares over, so I can do something like this. Let me actually put it like here in the middle. And I can demonstrate you need to take from both of these. And then the long-handled inserter will set these out here, and then I can grab them with a bus. Right? Now, is this ideal? Is this the best way to do it? Absolutely not. But is it fully scalable? No. But will it get the job done? Absolutely. So now these guys are making transporter belts, and they should be making them exactly as fast as this is producing the cogwheels needed for it. So the next thing I'm going to do is going to look a little bit silly for now, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a inserter there, and I'm going to make a chest. The chest is going to go here. This I can actually block it so that it only fills up to a certain amount. And actually, I like to have like, yeah, maybe like that. Because I don't want it to use all of my resources just making these gear wheels. That X makes it so is that it will only fill up to this point, right? Instead of filling the chest all the way up. And now this is just going to keep endlessly producing transport belts. So I will never have to make any more transport belts in my hand ever again. Right. Okay. So with that being done, the next thing we can start looking at is, of course, the science packs. And so with 1 copper plate and 1 iron gear wheel needed, we can see that it will take 5.5 seconds to be created. And actually, if we go ahead and make an assembly machine here right in our hand, we can see, if I were to plop this down, we go to science, we click on it, you see it would take 5.5 seconds. Now, an iron gear wheel is produced every half a second out of one of our devices. That means that every time this goes through, that means that basically we can, every one item producing a gear wheel, like 11, can fit 11 of these guys. Right? Because a factory producing gear wheels will produce 11 gear wheels in a 5.5 second window. So in that 11.5 second window, it can handle 11 of them being used. All right? So here's how we're going to make use of that knowledge. We're going to extend this out here. And then, just like we did before, we're going to put a splitter. And then off of that splitter, we are going to have 1 assembly machine. Which will be making... Actually, it doesn't even need to go down that far. It's just literally 1 thing being inserted. And then let's power it up. We'll do it like this. We'll do 1 more here, and then we'll go in here, out here, so that we can put the power supply there, and it'll hit everything. Okay. You are making gear wheels. Okay. And then we'll have a bunch of these assembly machines, which we're going to make a bunch now. We are going to have 11 of these, which are going to go in a line this way. Alright, welcome back. Now, I think you can see here what the issue is. That these guys, if they're going to be making the science packs, they need the copper plates. I've got all the iron here, and indeed, I've even got all of these iron cogwheels. So how am I going to make sure that it gets the iron that it needs? And also, oh, I've actually realized that I've made a bit of an error in some of my placement here. Those of you who are probably more experienced with the game than me will know what the error is right away, but I'm gonna like make some adjustments here for the benefit of those who aren't quite sure of what's going on here. Basically, what's happened here is that I forgot that basically I'm going to want to put all of my inputs on this side, all of my outputs on this side. That's the way I've set up my inserters, but this is one of my inputs and it's on the wrong side. So, but the major question here is how am I going to get my copper down here? And that's, again, where we use the underground belts. So I'm going to snip out a couple of these iron gear wheel locations. We're going to just cut straight through the underground like so. Or we're going to cut straight through on the overground like so. I'm going to stick a splitter here. Sorry, again, I'm making some slight mistakes with the way I want to do this, but the idea is sound. And then underground, underground, there we go, and that reconnects that up. Now I've got this coming down through, and these will continue again into perpetuity. They go straight past, and this will come down here. I've actually made another small mistake, because this has actually got to get fed from two different directions. I said I didn't have to make these in my hand anymore, and then I made a whole bunch in my hand. There we go. All right. So as you can see, the two side of the belt situation, we can actually use that to our distinct advantage in a situation where our assembly machine needs multiple inputs. This is huge. This is absolutely huge for making sure that our logistics network makes sense. So then I start from the bottom and I start going up on this side. Yeah, look at all those belts. 400 are now in my inventory. 480. And you should start to see how we start no longer having trouble. You should start to see how we quickly start no longer having trouble with like the number of belts that we have, at least for the time being. So now we just go into each one of these individually. We select. I think you can copy paste this somehow. I'm not entirely sure how that works, but like that's the idea. And we have red science being automated. Feels really, really good. And I am still operating under the assumption that one of these can fill all of these. I might need a second one though, but I'm pretty sure it is, because this should create one every 0.5 seconds, and this should take five and a half seconds to complete. I don't know why it says crap. It's because that's for the machine. It says crafting speed 0.5, but that's for the machine itself. The machine takes 0.5 seconds to create. But yeah, so here you go. You can see now that I have all the red science that I could ever need being produced, and now I can start the creation of the lab structure, where the labs are permanently going to be set and they're permanently going to be making science. that's what we can do starting in the next episode. Thank you guys for stopping in, and I'll see you guys next time. What's tennis? Bye-bye.